All right. Well, we are recording and we would like to begin with a devotion. And we never really settled on this, but Kate, would you do the reading from Isaiah for
Sure.
us?
Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. All right. So for the service, I would ask that you all mute yourselves, except for when you have a speaking role, Kate, to make sure you unmute yourself so we can hear you.
The word on your heart should not be repaid. We have to face the mountains we can climb. Repay is finite. Repay sees an end. Repay means relief upon paying your fine. There's protect. There's love without condition. There's understand. And with each offering, our mountain shrinks in size.
And now, while you remain muted, I invite you to say with me an excerpt from Psalm 113. Give praise, you servants of the Lord. Praise the name of the Lord. Let the name of the Lord be blessed from this time forth forevermore. From the rising of the sun to its going down, let the name of the Lord be praised. The Lord is high above all nations, and his glory above the heavens.
O God, you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are fixed on you. For in returning and rest we shall be saved. In quietness and trust shall be our strength. Isaiah 26:3, 30-15.
And now let us say together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Lord Jesus Christ, you said to your apostles, "Peace I give to you, my own peace I leave with you." Regard not our sins, but the faith of your church. And give to us the peace and unity of that heavenly city, where with the Father and the Holy Spirit you live and reign, now and forever. Amen. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to see all of you and an absolute joy to celebrate Thomas, Grace, and Karrah. So before we get too far into things, one, I'd like to point out that the song that we heard at the beginning was Do Not Repay Me by our own Nia McKenney. So thank you so much, Nia. And you can all unmute yourselves now as well. So thank you so much, Nia, for offering your gifts to us. It is wonderful to have you do that. So we'd like to introduce ourselves to you because you probably don't know all of us, and we'd like to hear you introduce yourselves to us because we don't know too much about you. And so I will begin. My name is Christopher Richardson. I am a priest here in the Diocese of Southern Ohio. I've lived in Southern Ohio the vast majority of my life, and I'm currently in the Columbus area serving St. John's Episcopal Church in Columbus, Ohio, which is a mission church in the diocese. And I'm here because the work of becoming beloved community and Black Lives Matter is deeply important to me. I think that as a spiritual person, a religious person, and just a person in general, I think that doing what we can to recognize Black lives, honor Black lives, and that this is a story that we are all a part of is a wonderful opportunity. And to give you an opportunity as young people to share your story and to recognize your part in the story is a great pleasure and gift. And so, Amy, I will invite you to share next with us.
Thanks, Christopher. And thank you, Nia, so much for your song earlier. Like Christopher, it's really such a joy to be here with all of you. I'm so grateful for the courage and the honesty, Karrah and Grace and Thomas that you had in sharing your stories with us. My name is Amy Howton, and I'm serving right now as the Becoming Beloved Community Coordinator for the Diocese of Southern Ohio. I've been in this role for about 2 years, full-time since January, and really so honored to be working alongside so many like Christopher and Kate and Nia and others in our diocese who are really committed to following Jesus and to bringing forth a beloved community. And I feel like right now in this moment in time in our world that we have such a responsibility before us, and feel that really deeply, and feel myself that I have grown in my own faith as I start to understand the sins of racism and white supremacy, and how our faith, how Christianity has played a role in that, and how it's formed our nation. And I have a lot of hope in our young people and our young leaders. And I really believe strongly that you all are the ones that are going to step forth and bring forth this beloved community in ways that we cannot even imagine. And so I'm so excited and honored again to be here with all of you. And I'm looking at Grace, you and Thomas and Karrah, and of course Kate and Nia, y'all too. And Darian is part of this team as well. I don't know if any of you all know Darian McCoy, but I just have so much faith in our young people. And so thank you. And Nia, I'm going to pass it over to you and invite you to introduce yourself to us.
Sure. Hello, my name is Nia. I am a lot of things. I'm a grad student right now, getting my master's in music engineering and technology. I'm a choir director currently at Church of the Advent here in Cincinnati. I also work at the Norwood Branch Library if you want to swing by. And I also work as part of the marketing team for Forward Movement. If you have ever seen publications from them, you may have seen something from me. And also I do music. I'm a singer. And I just want to be here to help others be as vocal as I feel I've gotten lucky to be in sharing a lot of my stories. And yes, I have a lot of feelings. I can't articulate them right now, but good job and thank you for being here. Kate, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Kate. I'm Amy's daughter, if you guys haven't caught on yet. I am 20 years old and I'm currently a student at Eastern Kentucky University studying social work. I grew up in the Episcopal Church in Cincinnati at All Saints, and then in the past few years I've worked for Proctor Camp and Conference Center, which is a summer camp through the Episcopal Church. And yeah, I just wanted to be a part of this project because I've seen so many like youth grow through our diocese and just in our country speaking their stories, and well, all the Black Lives Matter stuff is happening, and I think that this project gave you guys a chance to share your voice with us, but also just provided you all with a prompt to really like just sit down and think for a second about how racism has affected all of you and how like we'll use this experience and like move forward with this. So thank you guys for everything that you did in your artwork. I invite Grace to go next.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Grace Hall. I am a member when I'm pre-COVID and not at school. I am a member of St. Andrew's Episcopal Church here in Cincinnati. I'm a junior political science major, writing minor at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. And yeah, I have a podcast that I like to do. I talk about a lot of different topics, and there was a lot going on that week in the world in general that kind of made me want to like make that solo episode where I spoke on a lot of the things we'll talk about later. But yeah, that's me.
All right,
Yeah,
Thomas, why don't you join? Yeah, great.
My name's Thomas. I'm Amy's son and Kate's brother. I am 16. I am a junior. My mom told me about this this whole contest and everything, so I thought I'd try it out. It took me a while to figure out what I wanted to say, because it's hard to come up with things that when you're a white person that you can say about racism, how you're affected by it. But I had fun with the experience, and thank you guys for having me here.
Okay. Hi, my name is Karrah. I'm 15 years old. I live in Dayton. I go to church at St. Christopher's Fairborn. I also go to school downtown Dayton at Stiver School for the Arts for creative writing. And my dad was the one who actually initially told me about this competition. So it was a lot of fun being able to share my story and creativity.
All right, thank you all for sharing with us. So we do have some general questions, and then we'll give you a chance to share the story you submitted to us. And after all of you have had a chance to share, we'll ask you some specific questions about the story you shared and give you an opportunity to ask questions of one another. But as we ask some of these general questions, you already kind of talked about what about this moment motivated you to step out of your box and submit a story. So I guess our next question is, how do you want to use your experiences to teach others or provide an example for others, be they youth, adults, or anyone?
I guess I can answer that one first. For me, I just think that I have been very privileged in a lot of situations. And I think that attending a historically Black college right now, I'm very often surrounded by people who support me and understand my struggle. And so when I'm at school, even on Zoom now, we just have a lot of conversations, but it's a very like open, like loving space. And so we're able to have a lot of important conversations. And I think that kind of sharing my opinions on those kinds of things, and maybe someone could listen to the podcast who does not have a lot of experience with Black people or their struggles, can kind of hear it from me when I've had a lot of experience being able to express myself truthfully and honestly. Hopefully I can share that message in a way that's helpful to everybody. So I've just been very lucky to be in a lot of situations that very much support me and uplift me and kind of, you know, hold me in times like this. So yeah.
I mean, I've also been very lucky. I live in a predominantly white neighborhood, and I think it's important for, especially where I live, for people to realize that racism affects everybody, including people who don't necessarily support Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. And I feel like it's a good way to help a lot of people just realize the effects that racism is having on everybody right now, and all the things that are happening in our world, which yeah, that's pretty much it.
I thought that it was well, I'm also lucky because all the schools that I've gone to have been very accepting of all races and ethnicities, but I also think that it's important for people to be aware of the racism around them and prejudice. So
Great, thank you. The next question is about strength from weakness. And we all have moments of our lives where we experience weakness, where we have fallen down. So the question now is, how do you use those experiences as stepping stones to get to wherever you are headed?
I guess I would just say that in the moments of weakness or grief, which grief is something that I talk about a lot in my episode, I think that for Black people in America, I mean, it's not anything new and it's not anything that's necessarily going to change tomorrow. So I think allowing yourself to have those moments of grief and weakness and depression, like having those moments, but understanding that that's not the end. And I truly believe that God didn't bring us this far for it to be over so soon. And I also don't think that Black people would have been treated this way for this long if we weren't supposed to stick around. I mean, they tried to get rid of us for a long time, and we're still here, and we're still dominate pop culture and still have some of the best of everybody. So I don't think that, you know, we're here to stay. And so I think that just understanding the bigger picture and seeing how beautiful it is. And I mean, evil doesn't win at the end of the day. So, you know, just gotta stay strong, I guess.
You know,
I mean,
go ahead, Thomas. Go ahead. I'll go after you.
Okay. I was gonna say, I can't really relate as much because I'm a white person, but I think that right now what's happening is amazing, because a lot of people who haven't really thought about all of these things are starting to think about it, and it's starting to change a lot of people's opinions and minds, and people are really starting to realize that everything is gonna start to change, and I think it's gonna start to change pretty quickly. Not like not everything is gonna be perfect instantly, but a lot of things are gonna happen, and I think they're gonna be really good.
Nice. I was gonna share, you know, I think just as much as we want and expect answers from you all, it would be nice for us to share as well. So, you know, you can get kind of an idea of why we're here. And so I wanted to ask you this question, but I also think about where strength and weakness lies in terms of myself. And often I think of like very kind of binary things. I think of bad days and good days, right? And a bad day for me is, say I experience something like clearly outwardly racist, or say I experience just a microaggression or a few microaggressions or something that may feel just a little bit off even. And I let that change my behavior, because what else am I going to do? I'm feeling these horrible things. There isn't going to be a smile on this face all the time after receiving that kind of treatment. And so sometimes I let myself have that bad day. I let myself get angry when I drive at people who are just trying to get where they're going to. And I let myself sleep in for too long instead of doing my homework. And then I kind of assess, how do those things make me, how do they make me feel, and how do they make me therefore react to how I'm affecting my surroundings? So when I'm angry, am I causing others a degree of pain as well? Am I making my coworkers feel worried? Am I, what am I sparking in letting myself have that bad day? And it doesn't necessarily give me any kind of answer or solution, because Grace, just like you say in your podcast, you have to take healing wherever it can come. But it does help me kind of sit back, assess that bad day or those bad days, because y'all know we got bad days in a row. And then I can take that and think, okay, well, now I know how my anger works in this scenario, and I'm gonna make tomorrow better, just a little bit better, even if it's sleeping in less late, even if it is letting somebody go in front of me in a line. And I find that lately, even taking in more pain, because this past several months has caused me a lot of pain, I have better good days. There you go.
Thank you so much for sharing, Nia.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Kate.
I just would think that also that all of us have weaknesses, and I feel like for a long time it was like society's standard to pretend like none of us were weak at all, or like we were just always putting on this face of our most perfect sides of life. And I think that spaces like this, where we're all talking about our, not our weaknesses, but how we perceive things and how we react to different things, are what makes us stronger, and that's how we're going to get better. So weaknesses really are the pathway to like growth.
Yeah, and just a bit about that question, I think for you all, one of the things that struck us when we were reviewing your stories is that each one of you, Grace, Karrah, and Thomas, in your pieces, you spoke very clearly to like where you drew your strength from these times of difficulty. And I think just for us to recognize that from those times of darkness comes great growth and possibility. And I think, Grace, like I heard you say, we're not going anywhere. Evil at the end of the day didn't have the last word. And your pieces that each of you shared, there was a common thread across all of those around that. And just like, how do you source strength from those times? And I think in a lot of ways, our faith teaches us that, it's the story of the crucifixion and the resurrection. And so just lifting that up, Also, just saying, parents, feel free to chime in here too. We really do want this to be in conversation. And so I appreciate Nia, you and Kate kind of helping us shift that a little bit.
I think one of the things that I always keep in mind is that we as human beings do not learn from our successes. We learn from our failures. The things that hurt, the things that we have to overcome, those are the things that teach us the most. And those are the things, I always think of the crucible and refining our, it's from one of the hymns, but refining my dross to consume and my gold to refine. You refine ore through fire, through painful, hurtful experiences. And overcoming those experiences, we can use those two ways. We can use those experiences to anger us, traumatize us, make us bitter, and basically hold us back. Or we can use those experiences to make us better, move us forward, make us more empathetic, more understanding, because knowing my weakness makes me understand and appreciate other people's strengths. So.
Well, thank you all for sharing. So unless someone else would like to share, I think we can go into the stories that you had. And so we're going to do them. Thomas, we're going to share yours first. Then we're going to share Karrah's, and we're going to share Grace's. And so what I'm going to do, Thomas, you submitted a picture, so I'll bring your picture up on the screen. And if you wouldn't mind explaining that picture and the imagery that you used in it. And then Karrah, you submitted a poem. And so if you would like to read that poem for us, that would be wonderful. And Grace, we have a 5-minute clip from your podcast that we'll be sharing. So as the others are sharing their stories, we ask that you listen to hear their stories. And then before you all answer the questions we sent out to you, we would first open it up to have you just say what you heard in each other's stories and any questions you might have for one another. Because one of the major goals of this, in addition to just getting you to share your story, is to realize there are other people who have stories to share as well, and to get you in communication with one another. So again, Thomas, we'll start with you. So when I get your picture up on the screen, feel free to go ahead and start explaining it for us.
Okay, so this is my image. It shows a person who I'm kind of conveying as me, or just society in general, and walking past the word racism engraved on the concrete. So what I was meaning through this image was we are all trying our best to move away from racism, and when at least for me, when I see that word or hear that word, the first thing I feel is shame, just because of my ancestors and what they've done and everything to do with that. But once at least I realized that, then the main goal from there is to move away from that and to start working on our future. We have to, I think that we need to, as at least white people, we need to acknowledge the past and realize the mistakes that we all made, and and accept that we can't change the past, but we can definitely affect and change the future now, and that our main goal should be healing and fixing everything if that has to do with in the government, just everything in general, with Black Lives Matter, democracy, everything like that. And so my main goal with this was to just show how at least I see the word and feel shame, but I don't just sit in my shame. I want to, and I think we all should move away from it and move towards the future and healing and etc.
All right, thank you very much. Karrah, would you mind sharing with us the poem that you wrote?
Okay, my poem is called An Important Revelation. In times like these, it is easy to resort to frustration, even anger. Not that it is not justified when the system that is meant to protect us is against us, for it is the very passion from our anger that will save us. Heat rises from the voices chanting in the streets and burns through the foundation of the very walls that were built just to block us out. I hear music of the bells ringing in my ears, telling me that it is my time to fight. But do not be mistaken. This fighting is not a means to resort to violence, but it is a thrust in the right direction against hate. Hate is what blinds the soul and blocks out room to add light and life. Light and life swell in a never-ending battle for goodness. It fills my lungs and clears my airways and helps me breathe to shout and protest for the lives of my brothers and sisters. In the words of Lin-Manuel Miranda, this is not a moment, this is a movement. Though I feel an indescribable cold and darkness during these times, I feel hope as it slips through the cracks of the pavement we march on and erupts through my veins. It makes me think that one day there will be another Black girl like me who wakes up and does not fear, but instead embraces freedom and endless wonder. I pray to our Lord that that day may come. Losing sight of faith in a time like this is what some are doing, but instead it should be strengthened. It is part of our faith that lights a path to peace and justice. Hate soils the spirit of our togetherness. It is only together as a community that we can prevail.
Thank you so much, Karrah. All right, and Grace, we're going to play a 5-minute segment of your podcast.
This is so funny that I'm just gonna be like sitting here and you guys like hearing me talk and I'm just like sitting here. You don't have to leave it on for 5 minutes if you don't want to. I'm sure you'll hear enough of me by the end of this, but sucker punch after sucker punch after sucker punch, which is crazy and hard and difficult, and we're getting through it. But you have to allow yourself the space to either give yourself silence and think about what's going on, or, just, I don't know, just like fill it with positive things, like anything that you enjoy. And hopefully this show is that for some people, but I don't believe in consequences. No, I absolutely do believe in consequences. Oh my God. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in things. I think everything happens for a reason. And this year has been full of so many struggles and so many losses and so many things back to back to back to back. But I do think that it all happens for a reason. I think we're going to come out of this a lot stronger. And when doing my outlining and writing and notes that I do before every episode, I was like, oh, I should bring up this quote from this clip that's literally gotten me through so many hard times. And then I thought to myself, I'm pretty sure I've discussed this on a previous episode. And I went back, and I think it's like episode 8 or something, a long time ago. I talked about this clip from a Rocky movie from 2006, which it sounds silly, and it is, because to be honest, I had never even seen the movie, but this movie clip I found on YouTube of this, from this part of the movie, has stuck with me for so long, and I watch it all the time when I'm feeling down or feeling defeated or whatever. And I went back and listened to that older episode, and I hadn't really talked about it in the ways that I didn't go fully into it as much as I want to now. And now I have like the quotes in front of me, and I'm not like looking for the video or anything crazy. But you have to, what I took from it is just kind of in order to be great and in order to fulfill whatever your purpose is, I think you have to go through things. And I think that goes not just for individuals, but also for the world in general. I think there have been so many evils and terrible things happening for so long that have gone unchecked. I think for us to get out of this, I think that everything feels like it's overwhelming, which it is, but also it's a lot of things that have kind of gone unchecked for a long time coming out at the same time. And that's why the loss of significant figures feels even stronger. But in this movie, Rocky says to his son, who's like struggling, again, I haven't seen the movie, I don't know what he was struggling with, but he said, if you know what you're worth, you got to go out and get what you're worth, but you got to be willing to take the hits. And I think that is something that is so true and so prevalent right now, is in order to get to greatness, sometimes you have to be willing to get hurt. You have to be willing to look like you don't know. You have to be willing to look stupid. You have to be willing to go through it. And I don't think that, and when I say this, I'm talking kind of more on an individual level. What I do not like is people using Chadwick Boseman's story as a way to be like ableist and be like, oh, well, you can just suffer through the pain. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm talking like more about like non-physical hits. I'm talking about hits to your self-esteem, or hits to your faith, or hits to positive thinking, whatever it is. Like, everything is not going to be easy all the time, but you always learn something and you always take something from it, and always will make you better on the other side. And hopefully as a country, having seen what's gone on with our police brutality situation, I mean, that it's been here forever, and our lack of a public health program with the pandemic, we can learn as a country, okay, those are the hits that we took, many of which are unnecessary, but that goes into who our current president is, which is not this focus of this episode. But we can then take that and fill in the gaps and do the work. And maybe those hits are what we needed to finally get to the point where we can do it. And I hope that's what it is, because it should never have gotten this bad. Well, that's me. So that was my voice when I was not speaking for about 5 minutes. I hope you know.
Great. And once again, thank you for sharing that with us. And so as I stated before, I want to just open this up. And this is open to the parents as well. When you heard these stories that were being shared, was there anything that jumped out to you, anything that stuck with you, that resonated with you as you heard the story?
Well, I was going to say, Karrah, I absolutely loved your poem. I thought it was amazing. I really like the line, I think you said, like, heat rises from the voices. And I think that was a really good way to like explain, like, kind of like not only just like the pressure from society, but just like how people are really feeling, and how there can be so much emotion tied into like simple words. Even just like simple chants. Like, I don't know if anyone went to the protest that happened over the summer, but like just simple words would carry so much weight. So I think you did a really good job at explaining that. And Thomas, I think that your picture kind of talked about what I was talking about, like moving forward. I mean, that literally, your picture was great. It showed like it showed movement, which, a lot of photos don't. So I think it was really good and showed that like forward movement. So, I mean, I loved everybody's. I think everybody did great. So.
It seemed to me that all of you acknowledge the difficulty of the present times and present moment, and the despair that is all around us. But at the same time, you were able to reach somewhere down deep and find some hope and some positive joy in this moment and moving forward. So I see all that in all three of these pieces.
And I would just briefly add, you know, what resonated with me is really all three of you have such courage to share your, you know, individual stories in the way that you did, in such an authentic way, very differently. You know, I love that there were three different ways that you all decided to share. But, you know, again, it was about, you know, being uncomfortable in this space, talking about it, but then also moving forward. I felt like you all three had that same theme, which was really interesting. And thank you so much for sharing. Great job.
I'll just say, I think, you know, this is why I think sometimes we don't give our young people enough props. And often I think younger generations can get so easily dismissed as not caring or, yeah, being like completely checked out of what's happening in our world right now. And I know that's not the case. Not only because I have kids who care, I know, and who are affected by what's happening, but also because I've been in environments with other young people who have been honestly sometimes even more engaged than a lot of adults. And I think that if we don't listen to what our young people have to say right now and how they're making sense of this and the wisdom that they offer, I think that we're missing a huge opportunity. And Grace, you and Thomas and Karrah, you all demonstrate that and you voice that. And so I think to echo what Agnes is saying in terms of your courage and your honesty and your bravery in sharing your story, also, I think it's an important lesson for maybe the elders among us, or I don't know if I want to call myself an elder, but I think to the rest of us that, you know, you have so much to offer our world right now. And just thank you for that. Yeah.
Open Gen Z. We have 8 children, 3 of the Gen Xers, 2 millennials, and 3 Gen Zs. Our Gen Z kids are by far the more attuned, aware. I mean, they just, and they're not afraid to stand up and say what they think. Kind of disappointed in Gen X. Sorry, Christopher, I think that might be you, but.
Technically an older millennial.
Okay.
I will say I had so there's some different scenarios happening. Grace, I've listened to your whole podcast, both in like meetings with our little team here and also, you know, on my own. So I kind of have had those like these feelings already, like where I, you know, you say something and my whole, you know, you get the chills and you're like, yeah, that's how I feel. And so now hearing you, Thomas, and you, Karrah, say your stuff, I was like really feeling it, because it just so perfectly mirrors that. This is what I think is important overall, is that like your experiences are so far different from mine, and yet it's walking the same direction. And like here you are saying these things, and just my whole heart, I feel like sometimes is like exploding with these same emotions, because you can, like, I can hear it in your voices sometimes, of just these, you know, thoughts, or even thoughts that you don't have words for, like spilling out in a way that you can make sense of it through an image that you create, and you add these layers to it, and through poetry where it's just like you can see it playing out in front of you just as clearly as that image that Thomas created. And so I really, I don't know, I feel very proud of you and of us and of everybody. And that's how I was relating to each of your stories.
Yeah, I have to say quickly, Karrah, when we read your, it is different, Nia, I agree. Like to hear you read it, Karrah, was really powerful. When we read it together collectively as a review team, we kind of imagined it as a sermon. I remember that's one of the things, like, Karrah's like preaching. And I felt that as you were reading it, and yet it still was different to hear your words to it. And Grace, I have to say, God, you are a powerhouse. Like, I feel like you were made to be doing these podcasts, and then to have you here with us, like, oh, it's just who you are. It's not even like a performance or anything. It's like, that's just your energy and who you are in the world. Yeah. And of course, Thomas, it's different. I mean, you're my son. And yet also I have to say, I was really moved to hear you. I mean, parents, it's different when you've got, when these are your young people, but to hear you step up in this moment as a leader and to hear it differently, I think it stayed with me differently. So there is something, Nia, about like hearing each of you and having you all present and sharing your stories here that feels really different than having just received them. So I wonder what it was like for you all to hear each other's story. I mean, Grace, you've kind of spoken a little bit to that already, but yeah.
I thought that it was really nice to hear people who were like, sort of in the same age range as I am, expressing the same passions and concerns and thoughts. I just thought it was very moving.
I mean, yeah, I loved hearing y'all talk. I didn't realize I was going to be like the old head of the group. I was like, oh, like they're like fully like in high school. I'm like almost about to graduate college. I'm like, oh, anyway, I don't want to talk about that. But yeah, I didn't realize I'd be the 20-year-old here. But yeah, it was really cool. And like we're all in different places with different experiences. So it's really cool to like see. And also just creatively, I mean, you could do anything with the assignment. So it was cool to see lots of different representations of like how people feel.
All right. Well, once again, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. So now we have some specific questions, and we emailed you these questions ahead of time so you'd have some time to think about them. We will start with Thomas. So in your explanation of your piece, you spoke of shame that comes with being white. So we'd like to ask you, in what ways, if any, does your relationship with God or your spiritual faith help you deal with or reconcile that shame?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes with what Grace was saying when she was saying how to grow you have to go through pain and things like that. So I think it's the thought of us moving forward and getting better as a collective, and I think it is good to acknowledge all the bad things that the people of my color have done in the past. I think we do need to acknowledge it so we can move forward. And I think just knowing what our ancestors did helps you realize what it's almost like you have an obligation now to fix what our ancestors did do. So like we need to realize that we can right our wrongs, and I think that this is a good time to do it because of everything that's been happening. So I think, like Grace was saying, after these wounds, this is our way to get better and heal.
Great, thank you. And the other question we asked, as you mentioned in your explanation, that it was a struggle for you at first to find yourself within the narrative of racism and how it affects you and how it affects us. But now that you have found yourself within this narrative, what do you want to do to rewrite the story?
It was a struggle at first to think of something like how I've been affected by racism, because sometimes it feels that I don't have the right to say anything like how I'm affected, because I can never understand or experience the full extent of it. But once I did, once I really got to think, I really thought about it hard, and the outcome that I could think of was the shame. And I don't know if I would rewrite anything, because I feel like the past is very important to becoming better and knowing what we've done wrong and how we can improve and everything like that. But I think that moving forward, it's more of just realizing and understanding more of just in general everything and how everyone is affected in different ways, and not you can't just understand instantly. You really have to be open to listening, and I think that's how we can all get better and heal and fix everything that's going on right now.
Great, wonderful, thank you. And so now we're going to move on to Karrah. In your poem, you wrote, "Losing sight of faith in a time like this is what some are doing, but instead it should be strengthened. It is part of our faith that lights a path to peace and justice." So could you tell us where you've experienced leadership that has demonstrated this kind of faith, and what does it look like or feel like?
If I'm being completely honest, I've never been the type of person to, be ahead of something to lead people, but I think that it's important in times like these to speak up for what you believe in and how you feel. And, it's okay to be a little bit uncomfortable, because if you're not uncomfortable, then not much is going to change.
Okay. The next question we had for you is, where do you see the hope that you referenced in your poem, and what action does that hope inspire you to take?
The most of the hope that I find is within my generation, especially in the midst of social media. We see a lot of things that are toxic, sometimes harmful, but sometimes if you look a little harder, you can find people who have the passion to make change. And I think that that is very inspiring, and it inspires me to share my own story.
Great, thank you so much. And now we move on to Grace. You give voice to the need for grief and the powerful role it plays in healing. So what would it look like for us to come together and grieve in community? Whiteness gives us lies around individualism that make this hard. So how might we practice this together?
I think this really comes from having the uncomfortable conversations. And I think that conversations like this are really important, but I also think that sometimes the people who are affected by the injustice, I mean, in this situation, of course, Black people, like, they're not always going to be there to lead you through the uncomfortable conversation. Like, sometimes you have to take the initiative to do that within your own family, within your own heart, within your own peer group, like whatever. And so I think that coming to the terms that even as, and this goes for lots of different groups, lots of different people, but like even as an ally or someone who supports like a cause, I mean, you still could unintentionally have been doing things to hurt whoever you're trying to support, and like coming to terms with those things and not being defensive about it or not accepting it, but understanding that like the choice of you to talk about it and move on and be better is what sets you apart from the people that don't. So it's not a failure. I mean, we live in a racist society. I mean, literally everything that we do is based in racism or colonialism or imperialism. Like literally name anything, it has something to do with that. So it's like, to act like nobody is racist or no, like, it's just not true. So just acknowledging that and kind of putting your pride aside a little bit. I think that's really important. And yeah, just acknowledging that in all socioeconomic platforms, like all different areas, there's things that are affected. I mean, there are people that are like, oh, well, like you seem to be doing well. And I'm like, well, my family like had to, you know, do like 10 times more than like some like a white family maybe in our position. And so just because we're okay or we had a Black president does not mean that like, you know, things are gone, because that's just not true. Like the fact that we even care that we had a Black president, it shows us how far away we are. Like it shouldn't even be like a situation. Like the idea that like the first HBCU graduate, Kamala Harris, is the first Indian and Black woman ever to be nominated on a major ticket ever in 2020 is like absurd, you know, like, you know, so that, like stuff like that. Like we live in a racist society. It's not okay, but that's where we are. So just acknowledging that within yourself, like everybody, I think is really important.
Great. And then the last question we had for you is what hit or hits have you taken that almost kept you from being able to move forward? And where did you find the motivation to keep going?
Yeah, I would definitely say my motivation came from my family for sure. My faith as well, but definitely my family. And my family has a big impact on like not facilitating my faith, but really brought me to where I am today. So I'm very grateful for that. But in the last year or so, I've had some health issues and stuff. And so that was very hard to get through. And then coming right out of that into like a pandemic, I was like, whoa, like we got to like take a step back here. So that was very, you know, it was just a lot. I mean, because the way it was different for everybody. But for me, I literally was on spring break for school and we just never went back. And then we just went home. So I was like, wow, like it just like I still feel like I'm in sophomore year sometimes because we never finished it. So like, oh, you're a junior in college. I'm like, I mean, I guess like I finished the classes, but like I didn't do any of like the stuff, you know? So I think I just had there was a lot from everyone that was kind of like immediately just like everyone was like the rug was pulled out from under us. And so I think that for a long time I was kind of grieving, not just like everybody that we were losing, but also like the life that we were losing. And I think that one of my mentors who spoke to us, I'm on student government, and one of my mentors, so she used to be our dean of students, but she has a different job now, but she dropped in on one of our meetings and she just said that it's okay to like, just like mourn the life we had. Because like having like student government meetings on Zoom is not normal. Doing this on Zoom is not normal. Being a college student on Zoom is not normal. And that's like okay to reconcile. And we had to like move so quickly into it. And not to go on a whole tangent, but also it's all about capitalism. It's all about go, 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 go. And like we never really took a time to like sit. And capitalism tells you only have value if you're producing something or being productive in some way. And it's okay to not be like a machine. Like I'm not a paper writing machine. You guys aren't like work producing machines. We're human beings, and it's okay to sit, but we didn't really have the space to do that. And so the not having the space to do that, and then also like everything that changed was big for me. But I think that over this summer, I mean, I had like internships that were planned that didn't work out because of COVID and everything. And I really had to just like sit and be like, you know what, it's okay to not be busy all the time. And it's okay to be upset, not just for like the obvious lives, but also just for like the life that we're living right now, because it's not going to be the same for a long time. And I think that when you avoid things that bring you grief, which our previous life, and also just like the underbelly of racism in this country, when you ignore it, it gets worse. So you kind of have to just like, you know what, like if I'm going to just be upset that I can't like go hang out with my friends, I'm just going to be upset about it. And it might sound like, you know, selfish, but it's just a real thing. Like, I mean, you can't walk around and like not acknowledge that. So kind of a long-winded answer, but yeah.
No, that was perfect. Thank you so much. So before we move on to the next thing, I just want to offer one more opportunity for anyone else to weigh in on anything that you have heard or anything you would like to add.
I mean, again, I just thought everybody was great. I think everybody did a great job. And I think that just having these conversations is really important, because also just like I'm in Cincinnati right now, but also like I go to school and like I'm going back to Atlanta soon. So like I probably wouldn't have had these conversations. So we are lucky to have the technology to be able to do this and talk to people from all over the place. And I'm really glad that people just like felt called to do this. I think that's really important. So.
Thank you for everyone who contributed, and for all the diocesan support that is there for our children, and for including us parents in this. Thanks.
Well, once again, just want to extend a huge thank you to Grace, Thomas, and Karrah for stepping out of your comfort zone, for sharing your story, for being vulnerable with us. And you've highlighted in this campaign what I've been saying for years, and that I get really frustrated when people say that youth and young people are the future of the church. That is an absolute lie. You are not the future of the church. You are the church today. You are the church now. And so thank you so much for stepping into your role as leaders in the church. Even if you don't feel like you're a leader, you are leaders in the church. And your willingness to share your story is evidence of your leadership here. And in order to continue the idea that this is your church and it is for you and you are part of it, there is an opportunity coming up. There are a number of opportunities coming up to continue sharing your stories, to continue sharing even more stories. But before we kind of share with you what our hope is moving forward, we want to know, how can we best facilitate you staying as storytellers in this narrative? How can we continue to support you in sharing your story with one another, with the world? What can we do to be of assistance? And how do you envision sharing your story looking in the future?
I mean, we kind of, this like whole assignment was a great call to just like express yourself. And I think that even though this is like a specific like program or like initiative, like for this like deadline, I guess, I mean, I think having that as like an open call always would be really nice maybe. And I know you said you're doing like a newsletter or something where you're like showing like who we were like today and what we did. And so maybe having like a bi-monthly or something basis of like sharing whoever felt called to share at that moment. Like, oh, in the last 2 months, we got this really cool painting or this really cool poem or like whatever, and kind of just keeping it like a constant thing that people can be like, oh, let me go see like what everybody was up to. So I think that'd be cool.
I love that idea, Grace. I'm just capturing some of the stuff you're going to see kind of there in the chat so we don't lose it. And also, I mean, if you're like me, I'm kind of an introvert like this. So sometimes I don't necessarily come up with ideas on the spot, but this is the ongoing invitation for your continued ideas. Yeah, I really love that though. Just like having that call open.
Yes.
Oh, would there be any
So-
way to use the diocesan connections as to institute a page for young people, or a whole section devoted to submissions by young people, to give them a platform that's more broad-based than just, you know, this platform, and, you know, put Grace's podcast where you can reach, where you can get her podcasts and what they're called, and you know, just poetry, pictures. I mean, we've got so much talent here. If we really want to make these kids, the young people, feel included, then they should be a part of every publication that goes out from the diocese, every website, every you know, printed publication, everything. They should have a place, a space, and a voice in all of those arenas. That's my thought.
That is wonderful, and I am with you 100%. And so here is where I tell you that my other role is that I do work, in addition to being at St. John's, I also work for the diocese as part of a newly formed formation team. And so what we are looking at is ways to continue doing exactly that kind of thing. But having other people confirm that, yes, that is a good idea means it's more than just like, I think this would be a really good idea. And people are like, Christopher, you're crazy. No one would read it. Like that, you all are here and you're saying, yes, we would absolutely read that, is affirming that we are on the right track. And convention is sucking up a lot of time, but I'm hoping that shortly after convention, we will have some new things coming out that are youth related, including an updated youth webpage.
Well, and the thing that I think is really important to understand is that anytime you want to have really good attendance at a program, you have children performing, because every grandparent, every auntie, every mom and dad, everybody goes to see the kids. If I know that my daughter or my granddaughter's painting, picture, post, poem isn't going to be in Connections, I'm going to read it. Yeah.
Well, Christopher, this is such a perfect segue to the call to the invitation for convention. Can we do that?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you want to make that invitation, or you want me to?
If you could.
Okay. So you all, this is so beautiful. This is how Spirit works. We are, this is really kind of part of a larger story sharing campaign that the diocese that we are preparing to launch. Kind of with this knowing that sharing our stories really matters, now maybe more than ever. And we're going to be launching this campaign in some ways at convention. And one of our hopes all along the way was to have at least one of you all be featured at convention. So Agnes and John and what I don't recall, what was your name? Karrah, your mom's, I don't remember your mom's name. And yeah, sorry. I don't know if you all know this, but convention is coming up. It's our diocesan-wide convention. It's on November the 7th. It's going to be, Grace, like you said, everything's on Zoom these days, so it's going to be virtual. In some ways, it might not be much fun because it's a very business oriented, passing resolutions and this kind of thing. And we really see this as an opportunity to breathe life into who we are as a church during this big gathering. And so being able to feature at least one of you all during that time as part of this story sharing campaign, I just feel like there's a lot of promise in that. And so kind of to that point, and just as you were saying, like we hope that one of you might be willing to be featured in that day. It would take the form of just like a 1 to 3 minute quick video. We're going to be sharing probably 3 to 4 of these videos throughout the day. And like I said, we wanted at least one of those to be one of our young leaders. And so you don't have to give us the answer right now, but consider this an actual invitation to be featured in that on that day in the form of one of those video stories. And what this would mean for you just practically is we would set up some time with one of you, whoever's willing or interested in being featured, to be interviewed sometime, like just in the next few days. So we could, we'd have, similar to kind of today, we'd probably build on our conversation today, ask you a couple of questions, and then we would include you in that video story. So if you're interested, if you know now that you're up for it, you can let us know now. But if you want to think about it and let us know later, let us know. But yeah, so. And also just, I think, so there's that specific invitation. And then as we're saying, I think just building on this energy that I kind of am starting to feel around creating more kind of ongoing opportunity for young people to be involved. I think one of the things we know is that when we see people that look like us, and we can kind of start to see ourselves in something, it starts to call out more and more energy. And so as we feature your all stories now, I really believe that it's going to call forth other young people like you. And so as we start to think about this story sharing campaign, if you all would be interested in playing a role in that, in other words, inviting other young people to come forward and share their stories, let us know about that too. There's a lot. I mean, we want you, we need you. Christopher, I love what you said. Like, you all are our church now. And so just know that there's a place for you in it. And we need your leadership. So there's a lot of opportunities. So please just know that come. That's it.
Yeah, and I'll just echo that and saying that because you are youth, you are young people, other youth and young people will listen to you more than they'll listen to me, because you're closer to having the experiences that they have. You're someone who they're going to value they're going to value your input more than they're going to value my input in many things. And so if you give someone a direct invitation, they are much more likely to respond than if I were to say, send an email out to the entire diocese saying, hey, everybody, it's your favorite chaplain from Proctor asking you to submit a story. They're not going to respond as well as if you, Thomas, were to go to a friend of yours and say, hey, I just participated in this thing and it was a really wonderful experience. I just want to know if you have a story you'd like to share. I'd love to hear it. And I think I know some people that love to hear it as well. That invitation is going to go so much further and lead to so much more conversation. Yes, we absolutely want to keep the line of communication between you and us open, and between us, the diocese, and the people of the diocese open. But we also, again, as I said earlier, we want you to be having that conversation with one another as well. And I think, Thomas, is one of the things you kind of mentioned, is hard to find your place in this, and growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood, that having experiences of other people and other people's stories, that's one of the primary ways we can grow in this, is to hear one another's story and share one another's stories. So absolutely, please continue to share your stories with one another, and invite your friends, invite your family, invite your peers to share their stories as well. And there's one other thing aside from convention, and this is very short notice because tomorrow is the deadline for this, but the Becoming Beloved community is hosting a dialogue series called Sacred Ground, as a film and reading based series where we will be given a selection of video clips to view and some books or articles to read that will all be sent. I think there might be 1 or 2 books you might want to get from a library or purchase for yourself. But then we will have 10 sessions starting a week from tomorrow. And it'll be roughly every other Sunday. But we'll have 10 sessions where we'll gather together and have discussions based on having watched some of these videos. And these are going to be conversations, excuse me, along the idea of race, grounded in faith. And we'll learn more about the history of race and racism, weaving threads of family story, economic class, and political and regional identity. So if this sounds like something you would be interested in or participating in, if you go to dsobeloved.org/sacred-ground, dsobeloved.org/sacred-ground, that will take you to a page that will give you more information about it and how to register. And I don't know exactly how we're going to do breakout groups or how all of the discussions are going to work just yet, but we'd love to have you participate in that. And if there is enough energy, I'm even happy to set up some time where we can have maybe a specifically youth, young person oriented group to do some discussions. And Nia, thank you for posting that in the chats, in the chat box. But yeah, we absolutely want to do everything we can to keep you involved in the conversation. And so to that end, I'm also going to add in the chat box, which you should all have already anyway, but I'm adding my email address. And anytime you have a question or a concern or an idea, feel free to shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you. And again, the line of communication on my end, I want to always keep open. So once again, thank you, thank you, thank you. We do have a little bit of devotion left because I like to begin with prayer and end with prayer. I think that is a wonderful way to encapsulate this. So I will have another prayer, and then we'll have another piece of music from the Thrive Choir. It'll be a song called We Shall Be Known. So we'll have a prayer and then a song, and then we will dismiss for the day. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to put faces to the stories that were shared. And you all are going to do great things.
Real quick, I just want to say, in terms of awards, your all's check awards are on the way. Karrah, I need your address. And you also will be receiving another little personal gift as well. So if you don't receive those, I would say, I mean, Karrah, I have yet to mail yours, but if you don't receive those in the next few days, let me know. Okay. Yeah. And as Christopher said, thank you again so much. And congratulations, you all, on being selected.
Thank you so much again. I love like the little pins and everything we got in the book too.
Oh, you got it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was like right before, like 10 minutes before I logged on, and Mom was like, you got mail. I was like, oh, awesome. So thank you.
That was on the plan. Awesome.
There we go. Holy Spirit at work. Grant, O God, that your holy and life-giving Spirit may so move every human heart that barriers which divide us may crumble, suspicions disappear, and hatred cease. That our divisions being healed, we may live in justice and peace. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds to change a life from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. Yay.
Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Hallelujah.
Thanks again to all of you for joining us. We hope to hear more from you in the future, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.